So you woke up on New Year's Day and you said to yourself, 2025 is the year that I build my first home. What do I do? In today's video, that's what we're going to go through. The first thing we want to do when we want to build a home is we need to know what we can borrow. So we want to go to a broker and not a bank. We want to go to a broker and find out what our borrowing capacity is. One of my friends, when they built their first home, they went into a bank. They were a first home buyer. They had no idea what they were doing. And they walked into the bank and the lady just shut the book in front of her and said, "Hey, sweetie, come back and see me in a few months when you can afford to build a home." It was one of the most demoralizing things that my friend ever went through. And I said, "Look, it's fine. Look, some people are just not good at their job. Let me give you my broker's details. Go and see him." When she went and saw the broker gave her like 4 or 5 different options. First thing you need to understand is when you talk to a bank, they can only offer you what that bank offers. When you go to a broker, they can give you a selection of different bank options. When you speak to a broker, all of the information you do with them is free. Remember, the broker's there to get you financed. The bank pays the broker for bringing that business in. So if a broker's trying to charge you, politely refuse and go, "Look, I'll go somewhere else," because you shouldn't have to pay for a broker's advice. Now that we've got our borrowing capacity sorted, we want to go to a builder and find out what home and land in certain areas cost. A lot of people say you need land before you build. However, I think it's the opposite way. You want to make sure you get the home you want. Remember, the home to build in pretty much any area costs the same, but the land is the thing that changes the price. So if you know what home you want, you then just need to find the land that matches that. So many of my clients bring me a block of land that they paid too much for because they wanted to be in a slightly better area. And then by the time they get to the build, they feel a little bit disappointed because they can't build what they wanted. So my advice to every first home builder is make sure once you find your borrowing capacity, go to a builder and find out where you're going to be able to afford with the type of home you want. But remember, you don't really spend much time living on your land. You spend all the time in the house. So the house tends to be the most important thing when you're building a new home. The reason we want to start with the builder is the builder is going to make sure that the home you pick is going to suit the land area that you're looking in. So once you've finished picking your home, work with the builder and get him to help you to find land in those areas. Now, depending on the kind of builder you get, he might not quite be happy helping you find land, but he can at least give you the agents to go and talk to. So once we find the right house, we now want to go and find the land. So you've got your house. We now want to start talking to land agents. Now, there are so many things to talk about with land agents. However, the simplest way to do it is just go to those land agents, ask them what kind of land they have, get a few options, and then go back to your builder with that land. Remember, your builder is the link to everything. The builder is the last person in the puzzle. So in order for the builder to get the business, you have to have finance, you have to have land. So the builder's going to make sure that it's going to work. That's why I always recommend the builder is the best person to go to for the information. Also, the builder's going to tell you anything wrong with the land. Because if you buy a block, it's going to be up to him to charge you what's wrong with that land. So the builder is the most trustworthy person to talk to. Why? Because in order for the transaction for the builder, the builder is the most trustworthy person to speak to. Why? Because in order for the builder to win the business, he needs to make sure that your finance is sorted and you buy the land. So if there's anything wrong with this land, this builder's going to tell you about it because they want to make sure that there's nothing that's going to derail his process. So if you're looking to build, always speak to the builder. So when you go to the land agents, it's super important to just keep it basic. The land agents, unfortunately, aren't the smartest people. They don't go through most, because it's like anything. It's like selling a car. It's like selling a home. They don't really tell you the problems with it. They're just going to sell you the land because it's in the area. When you take that land back to the builder's going to highlight the problems. So when you're discussing the land options with these developers, get a few options and go back to your builder and show them those options so that he can or she can assist you in which land is going to be best for you. Now that you've got your home and your land, it's time to purchase. And you're going to be doing the initial deposits with these builders and these land developers. When you're depositing and purchasing land in Australia, you need to have a conveyancer to make that transaction go through. When you take land from a developer and you buy it as an individual, you're buying a piece of Australia. And in order for you to buy a piece of Australia, a conveyancer needs to make sure that legally goes through correctly. When you're building a house for the build contract, you don't need any legal advice because you're just getting a company to do you a service. But when you buy land in Australia, you're buying a piece of Australia and the government wants to make sure that that transaction goes through and they also know who to charge rates, etc. to. So when you're in the purchasing journey, which you are now, and you've got your block of land, make sure you have a conveyancer on your team as well. Once that occurs, the conveyance is going to give you a list of things to be aware of and things to be mindful of, and then the transaction can continue. Once you've paid money to the land agent and to the builder, any money that you pay to them, you'll get a receipt for, and you give that to your broker. Remember, a big thing a lot of people get a bit scared about is starting to spend their money because they've worked so hard to save it. But you need to spend that money in order to get those receipts and give to your broker so your broker can start doing the finance applications up. In order for your broker to do those finance applications up, we move forward to the next step, which is contracts. So you've picked your home, you've picked your land, you're now purchasing the land, you're using a solicitor, you're now getting contracts on both home and build. You're going to be sending those contracts off to your broker for financing. When you're doing your contracts with the builder and the land agent, be mindful that perhaps after they've done a few more investigations on the land, sometimes the price can slightly change on the build. That's completely normal in construction. Remember, we're sort of having to imagine what's there before we know what's there. We're having to assume what's on your land before we've even tested the land. So quite often you'll have a slightly different price from your contract, from your initial quote with the builder. Once you get those contracts, they go off to the finance or off to your broker, and your broker will now begin the finance applications. When your finance applications come back in, or when your finance approval comes in, you'll send that off to the builder and to the land agent, getting you ready for settlement on your land. Whilst that happens, the builder will now be getting ready to lodge your plans to council. Council applications are a huge part. We need to make sure that we're legally allowed to build on that land before we start building on it. So when building approval's finalized, usually your settlement for the land will be around the same time. Those two will happen. We're now ready for physical construction. Construction is going to take 6 to 12, 18 months, depending on the size of home that you're building and the builder you're using. Just be prepared for that time. Whilst construction is going on, you're going to have progress payments that you need to pay. Progress payments are, instead of paying for the whole build all at once, at the end or at the start, the builder needs funds to be able to continue building the home so that they don't run out of money themselves. Remember, they're building, let's say, your foundation or your frame. They need to pay those companies that did the work. And if they used all of their money up front, they're not going to be able to finish your home. So you pay in stages. Every builder is going to have a slightly different progress payment structure, and that'll be listed in your building contract. As you're building the home, you're going to be asked to pay each one of those stages. When it's time to make a stage payment, you're going to get an invoice from your builder. You'll sign that invoice off to say the work's been completed, and you'll send that invoice off to your broker. Your broker will then organize with the bank for that invoice to be paid. That's how progress payments work. You're going to have a set of progress payments throughout the build. And when we get to the final progress payment, this one's called PC, or practical completion. So there's going to be a time where the builder has practically finished your home and it's now getting ready for handover. Practical completion is the time where the house is practically completed. It's habitable, it's ready to be lived in. There's just some minor touch-ups that needs to be done. Practical completion is also the final time that you get to notify the builder of any issues or any defects or anything in the home. It's important that you spend your time with the builder on your walkthrough to make sure that you've highlighted any item that needs to be fixed. Then the most important day, the day you get your keys. So this will usually 2 to 4 weeks after PC. This is the day that you pay your last invoice, and it's the day that you physically get your keys. For anyone who's built, this is one of the coolest days of their life. It feels like a whole new life starts, a whole new beginning. You get to move into your new home. Guys, that's ultimately what we're chasing. So if you follow these steps, I can guarantee you in 2025, you're going to get that feeling and you're going to feel super, super proud of yourself. Hope you enjoyed. Drop a like and a comment down below, and I'll see you on the next one.